Hello, welcome to my first attempt at recording an art fight video. So in this video I'm going to be going over my general experience in participating in Art Fight 2025. This is my card that I made just before the event started. As you can see, I was on Team Fossil. So Art Fight is like the highlight of my year in terms of art stuff. It's kind of like an art vacation or something. I think is maybe the best description of it for me personally. Normally I do really long-term projects, so it's really fun to just take a month out of the year to just do a bunch of like small self-contained illustrations. Yeah, this was my third year participating in Art Fight, and yeah, I'm always really excited about it in the months leading up. Unfortunately this year, like by the time July rolled around, I was kind of burnt out since I do tend to work on like really long-term projects where I'm just chipping away at stuff every day. And for whatever reason, this year I was just kind of in a little bit of a low point with my art. Not that it really matters. That's part of the reason I like Art Fight, is it doesn't actually matter how you feel about your art. Like even if I'm feeling kind of meh, it was still a nice it's a nice opportunity to, what am I trying to say? Even though I was feeling kind of burnt out or on a low point in terms of how I felt about my own style going into it, I still feel like Art Fight was worth doing because you can sort of feel through the designs and reading the descriptions how much people care about their characters. And it just feels so good to like be able to participate in a communal activity of like how much everyone loves and cherishes their little OCs that they make. So from that end, like Art Fight is great. It's I don't know, it's hard to describe, but it's making drawings for other people of their characters that have a ton of hours and time and effort put into them is meaningful in a way that making like fan art of commercial characters doesn't really get. I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like, if you know, you know. Anyway, back to the task at hand. Here's my card that I made. I don't have a ton of characters, so there's nothing like super special about the featured characters. They're just the characters that I have on my Art Fight are the ones that I have finished references for. The most notable thing on my card is the little portrait of my Sona, or my character that sort of represents me. I decided this year that I was going to make like a slightly alternate version for, or alternate design for each team that I join. I've seen other people do it and it looks awesome, so I decided to join in. Here's the reference sheet for my Sona's base design. In the months preceding this year's Art Fight, I made 3 alternate versions for the 3 preceding years that I participated in Art Fight. Here's the design for Team Fossil. I own that shirt in real life and it's fucking rad. It's like a sea scorpion from the Cambrian era. I thought it would be cool to make the tentacles like not fossilized, petrified wood. The like creepy face tentacles, but my favorite detail is probably making the eye like a amber with a little bug trapped inside for the pupil. The image is kind of small, so it's hard to see, but I don't know, I thought that was really clever. I was very proud of that. This is the design for Stardust. I feel like I could have made it spookier, but I guess the tentacles being kind of like floaty and anti-gravity-esque was a neat idea. This one, I don't know, I like how spiky it is, but otherwise it's fine. And here's the design for the first year that I participated in Team Vampire. This one is pretty simple, but I don't know, I just really like the somewhat symmetricality of the tentacles. I like the colors a lot too. This one is it's really strong despite how simple it is, in my opinion. And here's one more look at all of them together. So back to the actual event. I said earlier, the whole point of artfight is to draw other people's characters. So how do you go about choosing which ones to draw? I know that some people have like hit lists, or they'll save favorites on the site, but I do it entirely at random. I really like a challenge, so doing it this way, I end up often landing a character that maybe is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, so it helps me grow as an artist, I think. I don't plan very far ahead every year. My shortlist for characters to draw is basically made maybe a week before artfight starts. I basically just roll a d20 with a mod 4 to decide whether I'm gonna do a revenge, either from last year carrying over from this year, someone I follow, or maybe I'll choose randomly someone who follows me. And for the last decision, I'll do just a completely random character, since there's a little button on the site that you can hit for that. So while we're here, I figure I can take some time to talk about how I actually go about designing the image once I've decided on what character to draw. I personally have a difficult time using only intuition for my decisions while I'm painting. So I like to create like a outline or a framework, so that my decisions can be more focused on like what conceptually I'm trying to communicate. So I do the same thing. I just roll a die to decide like how much of the character is going to be in the frame, whether it's a bust or a full body. And similarly with the background, I'll just roll a die to decide if it's going to be just a pattern in the background, or if I'm going to take the time to like plan out an entire scene. And as you can guess, I do exactly the same thing with my color palette. I plan out a gamut mask. I just kind of like choose a gamut mask at random, and then I choose sort of also literally random colors, but I just make sure that they like fall within the gamut mask as my main palette. That way I can kind of get a vibe before I go to make the character. I don't know how much sense that makes. I don't really know how other people go about this sort of planning process, but I have really bad choice paralysis, so for me, like, having these constraints already helps me sort of lock in on like the mood or the narrative. And here's a little page of brush samples that I made. For artfight, I wanted to have also limited brush selection, so I didn't get bogged down in all the brushes that I have installed in Krita. So I made, I think, like 7 different brush sets, all with like different variations, so that, again, I could limit my choice paralysis and still have enough brush variety to employ like textured brushes and stuff like that where needed. So before we get into the, what are they called? The painting recordings that I made in Krita while I was working, I figured we can look through one of my work files so that my process might make a little bit more sense before we watch everything really sped up. So the first thing I start with is my color palette up here. I think I mentioned earlier I choose random colors, but this down here is important. The complementary, it refers to the particular gamut mask that I've chosen, and then the angle here. And I just make sure that basically I'll generate colors and then sort of squish them into the selected gamut mask so that my palette is cohesive. Here are my reference images, a little note I made to myself, and this is the reference image for the character. So I start with just a sketch, and I guess we'll just go through all these layers. one by one. It might be a little bit confusing at this point because this is a pretty complex image by the end. So the first thing I do after the sketch is I go in with line art. So here's my line art. It's been colored, but normally while I'm working it's in black, and then I just color the line art afterward. So the first thing I do is, it looks like I probably did this first. You'll notice that I've done the painting in grayscale, so yeah. So first I fill in my flats in grayscale. I think I probably at that point rendered in the background. And then to do the shading, I do a duplicate of my grayscale layer in multiply, and then give it a transparency mask. So I just like use the transparency mask to mask out the highlights or the places that aren't in shadow. And then this is just another layer on top to give the raincoat that they're wearing some transparency. And then yeah, my final step is to add a gradient map. So this is made using the colors from my initial palette. It's been many months since I opened this, so we're kind of exploring it together. So my next step would have been adding another layer to hue shift to push some of the colors more in line, and trying to make sure that they're all within the same gout mask. Of course, these ones, as you can see, don't, like I try to select colors that are within, but as they overlay with each other, or I shift stuff around. I'm not super strict with the colors, because I want it to, I don't know, I have to push things around. I make decisions. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, sometimes I just need to push the hues around I can't really explain my entire thought process. I just do art stuff, I guess. Anyway, moving on. This is overpaint. This is just a normal layer. It appears I've used this to add some more mistiness, bring out some of the highlights, brought out highlights in the transparent plastic raincoat, and also in the spider web. Fur correction. What is this one? I see. So this is to make the colors on my painting closer to that of the reference image. So, I can't let I like to play around with colors, but I try at least to make sure the character is recognizable at the end. Highlights, pretty standard or self-explanatory. What's this one? Paint layer 14. Oh, this is just something I threw in so the sketch would be visible. This copy of lines has a bunch of filter masks on it. Let's see, what are in here? Cool thing about Krita is you can sort of see what's in each layer by hovering. So yeah, it looks like for my lines I did it in multiple passes. So there's like the lines of the character and the lines of the raincoat were done separately. The copy of the lines has been given, how's it pronounced? Gaussian blur, just to give it kind of like a nicer, fancier, smoother kind of look. And then these are water drops added to the spider web. I think this has a layer style. I don't recall which one I think it's like I think it's a stroke. So it's set to multiply. So if you look at the layer preview here, it's all painted in white, but because it's multiply, white appears invisible. But I've given my strokes, or I've given my brush strokes an outline of 1 pixel in white. So that way I don't have to like draw circles. I can just kind of like do little plops, and then the drops are formed like that, just to make it a little bit easier. This is the line art of the branch, and then the same thing, just with smaller raindrops. And I think this one has a blur filter on it as well. And projection in Krita means basically copy. So I copied the entire image while merged. And what is this? I'm not really sure what I'm doing here. Lens blur. Okay, this is just to add a very subtle blur to the end. Yeah, so this blurs the sort of foliage in the background to make the character in the background a little bit more distinct. So yeah, this is a pretty large work file. I think this piece took me like 10 hours, so it was one of the ones that was more involved relatively, and part of that is because I used watercolor brushes, but we'll see more of that in the process recording. So yeah. I think I'll end the video here for now. I think that the second part can have all of the painting process videos all in a line, just because I feel like it would just be a really long video at that point. Sorry if there's any there's a little bit of weirdness in the capture of my work file, but I don't care enough to redo it, so whatever. Anyway, I hope it was entertaining or interesting to see just one random person on the internet, their process, and see you in the next one maybe.